Hello and welcome to Agents of Nonprofit. My name is Alexander Lapa, and I'm here to speak with everyday superheroes helping nonprofits using technology. Today, I'm joined by Regina Alhassan to talk about various topics, maybe some inclusive fundraising, maybe some data management, maybe some tools. We'll see how far we get. But Regina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Alex. I'm excited to be here.
So, for those who are hearing you for the very first time, could you share your superhero origin story with us? How did you get started working with nonprofits?
Yeah, so I love this question. Like, what's your origin story? I wasn't quite sure how to answer that. Like, my gut response was I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And I truly believe that we're all here to serve some sort of purpose. And we get to live out that purpose in a variety of different ways. And I believe that part of my purpose is to shift paradigms. And so, being involved in nonprofit work and nonprofit fundraising, in many ways, like other fundraisers, I fell into this work, fell into fundraising sort of by accident, but also have the understanding that, like, there, in many ways, there are no accidents. Um, so it felt really natural once I got into nonprofits and understanding, like, oh, nonprofits really shape the world. Nonprofits are a space to make change and to really affect change. And it just felt it was a light bulb moment when I first got involved in fundraising right out of college. So a fresh out of undergrad from the Ohio State University, I saw a position. I needed a job. I was a single mom at that time and I needed a job. Like, okay, school is great, but now it's time to earn some money. And I saw a position posting for, development program assistant. And I thought, well, I could do that. I can organize meetings. I'm good at, managing things. I can do that. And I applied and got the job. But once I was in the role, it really was a light bulb moment and seeing like, oh, this is why the buildings have names on them. Like, oh, this is why there are scholarships. This is why I got that scholarship and I had to write that thank you letter. And so it really was, the best way I can describe it was a light bulb moment of just, aha, this is how I can really make a change in the world. This is how I can mobilize communities to identify and invest in their own agendas in some ways, in their own community priorities, and pool their resources. So that was really, really exciting to me. And I never looked back.
So, fresh out of college, you see one of the first job openings for this position. But did you have any idea beforehand that maybe nonprofits was a direction you wanted to go in? Like, was there any personal experiences you had going through school that kind of gravitated you towards nonprofits? Or was it just that was when you saw that position, that was it? The light bulb moment happened at that moment.
Yeah, it was that moment. I never ever had made that connection before. So, which is odd because, again, I had received scholarships throughout college. I had a full ride academic scholarship. It was a merit based scholarship, but obviously, looking back now, it was an endowed scholarship with the university. And I was one of the recipients of the scholarship. But it never dawned on me that, oh, this is a nonprofit and, oh, this is, you work for a nonprofit and you could be a fundraiser. There's this thing called fundraising. That never dawned on me. And to be quite honest, I started college as a biochemical engineer. I was a math and science student. So it just never ever entered the in my frame of reference.
Okay. And then fast forward just a couple of years, and here you are today. So, what do you do today in terms of if you had to summarize, the elevator pitch, as some people call it? If a nonprofit was asking you, what services do you provide, or how can you help nonprofits? What would be your elevator pitch for that response?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been more than a couple of years. It's more like a couple of decades now. So about 23 years in major gift fundraising, but currently as CEO of Research Pro, which is my prospect development consulting firm. I work with nonprofit leaders to identify qualified prospects for multi-million dollar fundraising campaigns. I also work with nonprofit leaders to build out the infrastructure and the foundation for a robust prospect management operation.
So lots of wonderful topics we can discuss, but we kind of in the pre-show talked about three main titles. And let's start with the first one, talking about inclusive fundraising. So for those who may not be so familiar, what would you or how would you define inclusive fundraising?
Yeah, so there are a few different ways to take a look at that. The first way for me as a prospect development professional is to take a look at the ways that we are identifying our prospects and whether or not we are being as inclusive and equitable as we can possibly be. Are we identifying prospects when oftentimes we start by looking at zip code to look at quote unquote wealthy individuals, to identify individuals at a certain level of wealth, and then make the assumption that those individuals will give a certain amount of their wealth away and are engaged in philanthropy. So we focus on those communities and those zip codes. And unfortunately, here in the United States, especially, we have a history of devaluing and undervaluing institutionally and legislatively and systematically undervaluing and devaluing properties within non-white communities. And so there's this history that's just there of devalued property. And so when we take a look in certain zip codes, and so when we use that as the basis of our prospect identification, we are excluding and overlooking huge populations of other potential stakeholders. So that's one way that I look at inclusive fundraising is to really take a look at the practices of how we begin to identify prospects and then taking that to the next level of then how do we engage these people? Is everyone being invited to the party, to the gala? Or, all of our stakeholders or all of our constituents, our neighbors, etc., being engaged and held in the same value. That's one way that I look at inclusive fundraising. Another way that I look at that, and I'm really leaning into this space, using my platforms to lean into the way whether or not our fundraising practices are equitable. And when I'm talking about the equity there, I'm talking about the equity within our fundraising teams. So are all of our team members valued in the same way, from the chief advancement officer to the database administrator, the admin assistant, everyone in between? I'm really interested in exploring that space as well.
Talking about the zip codes, is it just a matter of being, let's call it zip code neutral, of not really paying attention to the zip codes and just targeting fundraisers across the board? Or is there, I'm sure there's more nuances than just that, but if you could talk about what does that mean besides ignoring zip codes? Is there other segmentation processes that you can go through to help? Because I imagine there's if you open the board up completely, you have the entire country, let's say in the US, to go through. So there must be some ways of just I don't want to use the word categorization, but it's a type of segmentation to be able to market to certain groups easier or have better, stronger messages and rapport building. Like, how would you, aside from just ignoring the zip codes, how would you address that?
Yeah. So I understand, like, having been in this field and certainly having done zip code searches throughout my career, I understand the tendency and I understand why that is one of the defaults that we go to. But there are other ways, I think, being really intentional about prospecting in other zip codes as well. And so oftentimes the pushback to that is, well, we don't have the capacity. We know that will be a bit of a waste of time. We know that the wealth in those areas is so limited, and we just don't have the capacity to find the needle in the haystack, as it were. But there is an opportunity there to be strategic, to utilize zip codes, but to just be inclusive about it. To include all of the zip codes in the relevant area. Another opportunity would be to be really intentional about building relationships with like your neighbors. So depending on where your organization is, physically, where it's physically located, are you engaging your immediate neighbors? Or is your donor base and your membership base, or do they live elsewhere? And then, or, what are the opportunities for community partnership there? Those are a couple of ways. Being really intentional about finding partnerships. So, finding affinity groups in your community and partnering with them in authentic and relevant ways. I think those are opportunities that we have to do meaningful and strategic prospecting and pipeline development, in addition to and to supplement like what we typically do with zip code searching.
And then the second point was about being equitable within the fundraising team itself. The sense that I get from that is making sure that the people who are doing the fundraising also have a holistic and inclusive approach as well, so that the team itself is diverse enough to be able to come up with better ideas as a group. Is that what my understanding is correct, or is there another perspective that you have in mind?
That certainly is part of it. And so I've been doing this for so long and have been, worked in this field and have certainly, and it may be shifting now, but certainly there it has been a culture of the fundraising team is very tiered, and I hesitate to use the word elitist, but there certainly was a hierarchy. That's the word I'm looking for. A hierarchy where the chief advancement officer or whoever that lead gift officer is, they are like the top. And the other development officers, frontline fundraisers are sort of at that top tier of the fundraising team. And then there's the hierarchy, but everyone beneath them, sort of at the beck and call of the fundraisers, at the mercy of the fundraisers, or this sense of the fundraisers. And I'm juxtaposing the fundraisers with the like advancement services or development operations teams, um, or even prospect development in some ways, or the IT team in some ways as well, research and reporting. There's this sense that everyone else is sort of lower on the totem pole, and that can be very disruptive for the culture of the organization. And then along with that, we see that show up in the pay equity. So gift officers get paid more than like a DevOps person. We see that show up in leadership and authority. So those frontline people have more authority and oftentimes are making decisions about the systems that are being managed by your database people or your DevOps or your advancement services. But because of this other cultural hierarchy that's in place, the gift officers get to make decisions that don't always positively impact the teams that actually are using the different tools or the different systems. Um, so those are things that I think we oftentimes just don't talk about. And then the ways that that can play out on a larger scale, there's this inequity within our internal stakeholder audience, and then the way that plays out when we're talking about external relations as well.
So for these two elements, the zip code, being agnostic to zip codes, and being more equitable for the team, why are these two are the more important aspects? Like, what would happen if they were ignored, or like, what are the consequences? Maybe the positives before we go to the less than positives. Like, if an organization is moving in that direction and they do these two things, how would they see certain benefits, or what kind of benefits would they see in doing this as opposed to not doing it and then losing out on some element?
Yeah. So the big vision, the big result is, on a very grand scale, the mission gets moved forward. The mission is actually accomplished. If you're a food, if you're an organization centered on food insecurity, the mission, then, the end result is what if there's no more world hunger? What if you actually achieve food justice? And I like to focus on that big goal, the big vision. Whatever your mission is, if it is save the whales or, every child receiving education, etc. we actually accomplish that. I think that should be our starting point. And I think part of how we get to that is through equity and all these different nuances in these different ways. So imagine your DevOps team is empowered to truly do their job and they're not facing some of this other cultural hierarchy, these other politics. Um, Imagine that people are really able to truly excel in their lane. And I think about the people that work at a nonprofit. It's a special type of person that works at a nonprofit organization. That's been my experience. People that spend their careers working for nonprofits or in the nonprofit sector are there because they truly want to make a difference. They're there because they believe in the cause. They go over and above because they believe in the cause. And oftentimes they're not compensated, they're not valued, and they're not respected to a level that matches their true worth in the true way that they pour into the mission. And so I like to think like, what if we really had equitable workplaces? What if we really meant it when we said that we're all equal here on the fundraising team? What if we truly meant that? What if we meant that everyone has a role to play in the success of the organization's mission, not just the president and CEO, not just the wealthy board members, not just, these key stakeholders that get to come to the fancy party? What if everyone really did have a voice and then really, and so then, because I like to imagine then the generosity that follows that.
If I were to paraphrase in my own words, would you like to see more of a round table discussion where everybody, like you said, is not in a hierarchy format, but more of a flat surface? That's what I mean by as a round table where everyone is equal. I'm always thinking about like the Knights of the Round Table where they decided we're all going to be equal here at the table. Each person is going to have an equal voice. Would you like to see something like that, or stay away from just the order taking and order giving type of hierarchy? What is there? Is there like
Mm.
one better than another, or as long as you're moving away from a hierarchy, almost in any direction, but away from the hierarchy is better than having the hierarchy?
Yeah, so I love a good collective and cooperative effort. So I'm all for that round table, and I think that again we do so much great work within the nonprofit sector and have so much great potential. And it isn't an overnight solution. It isn't like you flip a switch and everything's completely equitable. But I think we have to continue to have the conversations, continue to call things out and make space for a discussion, make space for that round table. Yes, obviously, I understand that someone ultimately, maybe not. I was gonna say someone ultimately has to be in charge, but maybe not. Maybe that can be a shared responsibility.
This is a topic I know we can talk about for a long time, but it's clear that you're very passionate about it, and I'm curious to know why is this so important to you? Why have you made this an important part of your offering your services and just the way you would like to see how nonprofits work?
Yeah. So this really is it's me using my platform to continue to, I don't know, again, shift paradigms. I really believe that's part of my purpose. And so often, having worked in nonprofits throughout my entire career, and not just worked, but also been a very active community volunteer for countless number of organizations, like within the community, within my professional community, within the industry, et cetera, and really seeing how individuals come together as an organization and function, et cetera. And I believe that again, everybody is doing it for ultimately for the good. Like we all want to see good in this world. And I truly believe I truly believe that we can achieve like the good and the just society that we say we want. And I just want it to happen. But we have to sort of confront some of these other things. So I could, as the CEO of Research Pro, I can find prospects for organization all day, every day. I've spent, the last 15 to 20 years doing that. My total identified dollars is far into the billions. That's great. There's also this other passion piece as well. Like, that's great. But I still have this secret desire, this secret intention of I want all of us to achieve our missions. I want, so for the National Urban League, I want race relations to be settled. I want that. I want to achieve that. I want, women and girl programs. I want women the world over to be empowered, whatever that looks like for them. I want us to achieve that as a human race, as humanity. And so I just get really passionate about that. Those are the types of things that, keep me up at night, that get me excited. And I'm really keen on how my role in data science, in data management, and prospect development, how that can help advance humanity, because it can, because we're connecting people, generosity to mission. And that gets me really excited.
One of the reasons why I'm a Star Trek fan, and I know this is not trying to, is it's a bit off in terms of, is the idea that in Star Trek, everybody's career is based on what they're capable of doing and what they want to do. All the basic noise is filtered out. Money is out, and greed is mostly out, and the idea is that each person is just free to choose how they want to spend their time and how they want to impact the world. And it's an ideal that I would love to see one day in our society. And I'm loving what you're saying, because it reminds me of that kind of spirit of saying, if we can get past some of the stuff that we really shouldn't be focused on, and trying to focus on the things that matter the most to whatever your mission is, wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be amazing? And it's a lovely vision that I really hope we get there someday.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I recognize that as an employee, in higher ed, in the different, not just in higher ed, but at the different organizations I've worked for over the years. As an employee, we didn't really have an opportunity to talk about these type of things. Oftentimes, I was the only non-white person on the team, and so there just wasn't an opportunity to talk about equity and justice, and some of these larger ideas of, what if we actually achieve our mission? There just wasn't the opportunity. And so now, as CEO of my own firm, it's like, oh, I could do whatever I want. I could say what I want to say. I can have the conversations that I want to have. And in doing that, the response that I'm getting from professionals across the globe, in the gratitude, thank you for saying the things that we can't say. Thank you for calling us out. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for centering this. That response just lets me know, oh no, there is a need for this. There is space for me to kind of play around with this and experiment with these types of conversations and have some impact as well. So you're absolutely right. I recognize that in sort of taking that leap of faith and starting my own business and having some success, I've carved out a little bit of space or liberation for myself to explore topics that otherwise, as an employee, I wouldn't have been able to.
It's not just a need, it sounds like there's actually an openness to it. It sounds like the people are actually receptive to your message, which maybe they were not. Like, I don't know if I have the sense, at least, that it's a more newer phenomenon. Like, if we go back, several 20 years, it wasn't so, people were not so open to it. Even though the need was still there, they were not open to the idea. And I get the impression, and it sounds like from what I'm hearing from you as well, is that not only is there the need that continues, but the openness to have this conversation. And that's obviously the first, I mean, not the first, but at least an important step to be able to enact change accordingly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I first started, it was all about net worth. Find the net worth. What's their net worth? Are they at this? Are they at, can they do 50,000 and above? That's what we want to focus on. If not, the the language has changed. But then the language was very, we don't care about them. I don't care about them. And so the language now is much more about, well, we certainly care about them, but we'll be strategic about how we engage people with various capacity, because we appreciate and we welcome all of our stakeholders, etc. But now the language is also, within the prospect development industry, we have this ongoing debate right now. It's like net worth or no. Like, are you looking for net worth, or are you totally ignoring that? And there are some falling on the side of, we don't even care about net worth. There are other things that, make this relationship important for us. And so that conversation was not happening 20 years ago. And so it's good to see that progress.
It's kind of a segue. It's the closest segue I think we're going to get into the next topic, which is about data and data management. Because as a nonprofit is gathering this data about potential fundraisers or existing fundraisers, part of your specialty is being able to pick out those golden nuggets. I mean, over $1 billion is incredible. It's a number I can't even fathom. So, as we enter this particular topic, I'm curious to know, what are the kinds of data that you normally go through and sift through to be able to find those nuggets?
Absolutely. So it's important for an organization to have like their donor or prospect, their stakeholder, their constituents. That could be their members, their neighbors, their volunteers, etc. The name, first and last name, the contact information is important. And these sound like basics, but oftentimes they're missing. These are missing pieces of information. So full contact address, city, state, zip, their giving information. How are they connected to your organization? A contact summary is always nice. If you're meeting with someone, recording what that conversation was, what it was about, the purpose, etc. And then all of that obviously should be tied to some sort of engagement plan, and how you plan to engage that individual and to manage that relationship. So those are really important pieces of information. And depending on your CRM, I know some organizations are still using Excel. I know one organization, a couple actually, that use Airtable. Some use Salesforce, Razor's Edge, Bloomerang. The list goes on. But some sort of data management tool or customer relational management tool is really important.
Okay, so you talked about some of the fundamental pieces of data, let's call it, for kind of your fundraisers, and then the relationship that the nonprofit has with these fundraisers. This is something I agree that every nonprofit should have as a base, and then the interactions you have. Anything beyond that, like if you were to walk into a nonprofit that has this information, how would you go about figuring out? And I used the word golden nugget before, but maybe that's the wrong term. How would you figure out which fundraisers to focus the next level or the next phase of fundraising, and then the following phases after that, to be able to raise that kind of money, the 1 billion or more than $1 billion that you have? There must be some kind of process you go through, without giving away, of course, your secret sauce of how you do it. I'm just curious to know a bit about the process that you go through, and work with the nonprofit to be able to figure out the best way or the best people to approach or the best moment to approach those people to be able to increase fundraising.
Yeah. So I'm definitely doing some wealth analysis and starting with their existing universe. Who's in their database? If they don't have a database, where are your records? Who do you have? That's where we're starting. And so then the wealth analysis to figure out How much are they capable of giving? What do we think their estimated giving capacity is compared to their giving history? So if they're already in your universe, they're already, in your records, etc., are they giving to you? If they have a giving history, how much, how recently, what was the last gift, etc. If they don't have giving history with you, then we're looking at what is the connection? Why are they in your database? Are they a member? Have they been a member for 10 years, 20 years? Are they a new member, etc.? Are they an alum? Are they a member of your alumni? Are they on your volunteer board? Or are they just a consistent volunteer? So looking at that connection, are they a parent? Are they a grandparent, etc.? It depends on, the type of organization we're looking at as to what the potential connections could be. But looking at those natural connections, and then again, kind of back to the wealth analysis, who's already in your universe that has the ability to make a gift of, I don't know, $1,000 or more, 50,000 or more, 100,000 or more, $1 million or more. And so when we get into these larger numbers, and even on the lower end as well, it quickly becomes apparent how necessary it is to have strong data. Like, because these are your people. They already know about you. They are already connected to you and have some sense of affinity to your cause and your mission. So it's really important to be tracking this information as a way to foster relationship management. That's sort of like the first internal step. And so typically the follow up question is, well, then what if I don't have data? Or what if I don't have anyone that is in my universe that can make a gift of $1 million or more, or even 10,000 or more? That's fine. And then we move to some external identification. And so then we have to pull in a prospect development tool. I use iWave for that.
And what does iWave do?
Yeah. So iWave is a prospect development tool, prospect research tool, and you can go into iWave, and I am a formal consulting partner with iWave. That means that I work with them, I do webinars for them, I get a discounted rate on their product. But I've been using iWave for at least the last 10 years, even before starting my own firm. But the way that I use iWave, you can go into iWave and you can say, show me everyone that has given $5,000 or more to a cause like mine. Your cause might be food justice, children's literacy, individuals with developmental delays. I'm just kind of thinking through some of my recent clients. Could be, just say, children's literacy already. It could be arts and culture, um, film specifically, could be social justice or faith based, or it could be a private school, or, all these, whatever your cause is, whatever your type is. You can go and look for individuals, corporations, and foundations that support a cause like yours at various giving levels. And then from there, you sort of backtrack. Do you have a relationship with that particular donor? Can you build a relationship with that donor? If so, how? So then you're able to build some strategy from there.
It sounds like iWave has its own data, right? It's not connected to your own data management system. It has its own proprietary data for which you can maybe not only analyze, but can you actually export certain contacts
Yes.
and import them into your system as well as a starting point, as a lead?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And iWave does have a Salesforce integration as well. They integrate with a couple of others, but I don't know. I'm not going to quote that. Don't quote me on that.
No problem.
I don't want to misspeak.
Going back to the other elements, you talked about the four, I think I tracked 3 or 4 levels of analysis: the wealth, the capacity to give, and the last gift, and then the connection. and then the relationship parent or whatnot. So this sounds like the stages you go through as you're analyzing the data. The first one is maybe the quick wins, because those are the ones that have the largest capacity to give. But to your points earlier about inclusion, we shouldn't ignore the other people that are maybe volunteering that don't have maybe a lot of money, or maybe has been overlooked because they're only volunteering. But the potential of changing them to a donor is possible, and that you should definitely go through that phase in the process. Is that my understanding?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when we talk about your people that are in your universe, yes, your volunteers, your neighbors, the parents, the grandparents. I also refer to this group as the grateful. So it could be people, maybe you're a medical facility and it's people that have been impacted by the services you provide and they're grateful for your services. Maybe you are an animal welfare organization and people in your community are grateful that you do things to control animal population. They're grateful, that you are controlling what could be a nuisance. You're a faith-based organization or you're a private school or an educational institution, and the parents, the grandparents, the family members are grateful. So looking at the with around the organization to just kind of think out of the box, but just a little bit, to see who is grateful for your impact, who's happy that you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. Have you engaged those people? Have you reached out to them? Or do you just assume, I don't know, are you just making assumptions that they don't exist or that they can't give or whatever the case may be?
And then the segmentation would follow suit, because obviously, whatever message you would send to the, let's say, the first category, the wealth analysis recipients, the message that you would send to them would obviously be very different than the ones you send to your volunteers or to your members or to your alumni. But you're leveraging that relationship to say, hey, thank you very much for volunteering for so long. Have you ever considered to become a donor? Which is very different than saying, hey, you've donated, this much before. Can you donate just a little bit more? Because here's the impacts of that extra donation. So it makes sense to me, and maybe you can confirm that once you've identified those individuals or those categories, putting them into a type of segmentation and then phrasing the right messages to those segmentation almost follows quite easily.
Absolutely. That is and that's the goal. So because then you're able to build out a prospect strategy, a relevant prospect strategy. You're able to carry that relationship forward in a more authentic way. And when you have strong data, when you have good data management, you're managing the pieces of information in a good way, in an orderly fashion, then you're able to automate some of that. So, maybe you don't have the capacity to, spend 60 minutes with a person that is only going to give you $100 because that's all they're able to do. That's it. And that's okay if that's all they're able to do. But do you, as a gift officer, have 60 minutes to spend with them when you have a $10 million goal? More than likely, no, but they're still worthy of engagement, but they can be automated. So their engagement can be automated. And then you have room and space and opportunity to focus on the donor that can do 5 million, that can make that transformational gift, which ultimately everybody benefits from. So it's less about an either or. It's just positioning your fundraising operation to be able to meaningfully engage every donor and every constituent exactly where they are.
At a certain point, as an organization is collecting all this data, there could be a data overload type of situation where, if they're tracking everything, phone calls, emails, activities, individuals, there might be some moment where there's just so much data, it might be harder to figure out the signal from noise. What is the valuable data versus the data that you should ignore for this particular context? Do you have any strategies on how to help with that?
Yeah, so one approach, which seems obvious to me, but to utilize prospect management. So every donor in your database, especially if you're a larger organization and you have over 10,000 records, you have 100,000 records, 500,000 records, etc. Obviously, you're not, you're not tracking all of the elements. Everyone's not being engaged the same way. So you don't have the same data points for every person. But you still need to, you would use your prospect management system and prospect management assignments to keep track of key people. And so that's one way that you can avoid like data overload. So if I'm Regina, I'm the gift officer for ABC organization, and I'm assigned to 20 donors, or I'm assigned to 50 donors, and I manage these 50 relationships. The rest of our 5,000 records, it's not, I'm not managing that. And then that's where we get back into the importance of the strong data structure, so that data can in many ways manage itself. So prospect management is one way that we can sort of focus on key individuals or key constituents. Another way that we can focus on is really narrowing in on what do you want that individual to do or that funder to do? How much do you want them to give? What pot do they go in? Are they a donor? Are they a donor and volunteer? Are they a donor volunteer member? And so just kind of figuring out the pots that people go in and the pots that are important to you and focusing on those segments.
For individuals that don't necessarily have a high capacity to give and maybe are part of that automated process, which makes total sense to me, is there ever a approach to say or to think about maybe this particular individual can't, but maybe they know someone who can, and to try to leverage their relationships with other people above and beyond, extending your reach to the people that they know rather than the people that you know?
Yes, absolutely. So that friend engagement and bring a friend, tell a friend, etc., that should be part of your strategy with every donor, no matter what level they are at. Certainly, if you have a donor that can do 5 million, you want them to bring the friend that can match that $5 million gift. In the same way that you want that donor that can do $5, that $5 donor, yes, maybe the match might only get you to $10, but that $5 donor might be an incredible advocate for you. Or that $200 donor that is the young professional that is a master at social media and they have a huge following and they can get your message in front of, 2,000 people, 5,000 people with just a few clicks. Yes, you want that. Both are equally valuable. Both are relevant for your mission. Your mission needs both. And so absolutely tell a friend, bring a friend, tell it, identify a friend. All of that should be part of your strategy for your donors at every level.
There's a lot more we can talk about, but I'd love to talk a bit about tools because that's obviously one of my favorite aspects in technology and so forth. I'm curious to know, are there any tools? I mean, you mentioned already three, the iWave, the CRM, and other data management type of storage systems. Are there any, without mentioning any particular names necessarily, are there any categories of tools that you love to see nonprofits use or recommend to nonprofits on a regular basis?
Yeah. Aside from the CRM, the prospect development tools, and there are a wealth of them, the research tools, it's necessary. And oftentimes organizations, say they don't have anyone to use it, or they don't have anyone that really understands what they're looking at, or how to best interpret and then apply the insights that these tools offer. But when you are talking about building a pipeline, especially from scratch, it's important to have a basic toolkit. This is not something that you're going to achieve by just with your board, with your current board, and their friends. If you want to go to that next level, you absolutely need to invest in some research tools. And there are a variety to choose from, but you need something.
That could be quite a rabbit hole as well, because to your point, unfortunately, a lot of nonprofits don't have a very strong tech background. Are there any kinds of approaches you can help with or recommend to say, listen, I know you guys might not love the idea of new technology, of learning something new, but the benefits severely outweigh any kind of short-term negativity you might have? Or do you recommend maybe them going to an outside consultant to help them? Like, how do you help mitigate that stress of something new in terms of technology?
Yeah, so absolutely, that's something that I walk handhold my clients through. But I also recommend like the free trials. Most software vendors offer a free trial for their products and take advantage of the free trial and like really use it to its full extent as much as you can. And sometimes you might get a week or 2 weeks. You can actually try out iWay for free if you go to my website. There's a free trial offer, and I think you get 2 weeks to really check it out and do some wealth analysis, etc. I know a few others offer like a 48-hour or 72-hour trial. But that is one way, especially if you're on a lean budget. If you're not sure that it's something you're really going to enjoy using, that's important to me. Like I have to enjoy using it. I want to enjoy looking at the platform and navigating through it, etc. So that's part of the criteria that I often use, just the user experience. So take advantage of the free trials and see if it works for you.
Awesome. So as we come to the close, then I'm curious to know, do you have any kind of interesting projects or goals for yourself in the near future?
Absolutely. So this year, I am launching a new product. Previously, organizations could work with me on a retainer basis, and the retainers were a large investment for many organizations. And the response has been like, "That's great. We love you. We need you, but that's a lot of money. Our budget just can't accommodate that. How can we access you on a more affordable at a more affordable rate?" So this year, I'm launching a new product, the Research Pro Prospect Development Accelerator, where I am, rather than doing the work for organizations, I am teaching organizations how to fish. And taking them through a training program, a 7-week training, and really teaching them how to use the different tools. I'm providing some tools for the organizations that participate, teaching them how to do it, coaching them through any challenges that they have. My program promise is that every organization will identify at least $1 million in qualified prospects. And I'm really excited about that because I get excited about prospect development and because it's such a missing piece for so many organizations doing so much great work. So I'm excited to sort of spread the gospel, as it were, in this way and really help some organizations, some smaller organizations that are doing amazing work across the country.
Yeah, I love the teacher fish model. It's such a powerful model, and you get so excited to see a nonprofit, stand on their own 2 feet and succeed. So happy to hear that, and we'll definitely put all the links that you made in the comments below. Regina, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. If people have additional follow-up questions, where can they reach you online?
Absolutely. So you can reach me on the website, theresearchpro.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram as at the Research Pro.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure, Alex.
All right, that's it for today. I'm Alexander Lapa, and I hope you join me again in the next Agents of Nonprofit.